Anyways, within a week, I got a job as a temporary secretary that helped pay my tuition for the first semester as a part-time night student. The guys here were so different from Florida State University. They were mostly very conservative Southern guys with a strong Bible Belt upbringing. I found out I was accepted to Air Force officers training, but I turned it down because I knew God wanted me at Baptist University, and my mother and family were so mad at me they cried with tears on the phone and said, "Don't, you're making the mistake of your life." But God just gave me clear signs He wanted me at BUA, and I couldn't go. I ran out of money. Anyways, what happened was my family didn't send me a penny to attend this school, but my Tallahassee church sent me $100 a month. And my first month there, every chapel message I heard seemed to tell me that I needed to be there. It was not like they could. It was like I'd read something in the Bible, and then what I read in the Bible that morning would be in chapel that morning. So God wanted me there, though I often wondered why, looking back at my life. It's starting to make sense now. But my family didn't send me a penny to attend this school, and I just worked my way through and then got money from that church. And that Tallahassee church did send me $100 a month, which made it possible for me to go there. Maybe because I was so smart and already had a bachelor's degree from a heathen state university, and had the reputation as the girl who turned down a chance to be a military officer, none of those conservative Southern guys asked me out for a date. And I ran out of money and had to drop out for a couple years to earn more money for school, and then went back in 1981, and that's when Larry the cable guy was there. I didn't know him too well, but remember him as one of the younger students who seemed rather green and immature. Perhaps I sat in front of him while we both gobbled down our lunch in the school cafeteria, where all the dorm students attended, but if so, we never talked to each other. We had a great cook there who looked like Aunt Jemima, and cooked like her too. I still remember the great grits with scrambled eggs and biscuits or sausage for breakfast, served on plates, and I usually went back for seconds. The guys looked at me in amazement and said, "And you're not fat?" Maybe that's why they never asked me out, because I ate like a pig, and they envisioned me as the fat mama for a future wife. Oh, that Aunt Jemima could cook fried okra with biscuits for lunch, fried chicken, green beans, and mashed potatoes for dinner, all made from scratch. None of this instant stuff. The school was on a tight budget. But the future Larry the Cable Guy didn't go to Forest Hills Baptist Church like I did from 1981 to 1983, but some other church. And I mostly hung out with the Forest Hills Baptist Church students for lunch or dinner at the cafeteria, where we all ate at long tables just like a high school cafeteria. Our school's cafeteria served breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day of the week except Saturday. You only had 2 meals that day. I often skipped breakfast to sleep in, but recall the long lines for lunch where all of us dorm kids waited in line for lunch and gabbed with our fellow students in line. I think I caught glimpses of Dan Whitney then, but he was off in his own world and I was off in mine with the group I hung out with that was more spiritual than the group he hung out with. I remember him as the green freshman or sophomore, and if I recall, he acted like the green freshman, so he didn't interest me too much. I wanted somebody seriously spiritual. I was around 24 when he was a student there, far too old for this guy fresh out of high school, and who acted like he was fresh out of high school. Though I do recall he put on excellent performances in our school's comedy skits. I liked the guys who were spiritual leaders in the school because I wanted a King David, but they didn't seem to like me. I think I was too smart and threatening for them. A lot of these guys were training to be preachers or missionaries, and they wanted a prim and proper Southern gal for a wife. That wasn't me, though I tried to put on a performance as the prim and proper Southern gal, but apparently it wasn't convincing. However, though I was from Miami, I hung around these kids so much and lived with them in the dorm that their Southern accent rubbed off on me. Not that I was rebellious. I agreed with this school's moral codes because I was fresh out of State University and still disgusted by the loose morals I experienced there. But I couldn't hide my intellect and was always on the honor roll and had the reputation as the brain girl with the heathen state university bachelor's degree around on campus. That didn't make for good preacher wife material. Perhaps I would not be a submissive wife. So I scratched my head in puzzlement over why God led me to this school, when as my senior year rolled around at BUA, I had no guy and only dated about once or twice my whole time at this school. Though Stuart Pullman, who I dated at my home church in Homestead, Florida, tugged at my heart. Some creepy-looking guys asked me out that the girls joked about as the guys who would ask any girl out because they were desperate, but I didn't want them. I'm sure the future Larry the Cable Guy knew who I was because we only had about 300 students. Half of them lived off campus, and he was an on-campus student like me. So the dorm kids really got to know each other, and the whole college was like a big family. I never really thought about Larry the Cable Guy too much. He didn't seem real spiritual, and I was off in dreams of going to the mission field. But in our churches, a missionary girl needed a husband, because it was a grave sin for a woman to be a preacher on the mission field. Excuse my bronchitis. I had no guy or no husband lined up, so this put me in a predicament over how to be a missionary, and I wasn't going to marry a guy just to get to the mission field. I had to love him. I never had to worry about getting a chaperone for my dates because I hardly ever dated. The spiritual guys in the school didn't want me, but if I had dated Larry the Cable Guy, we would have needed a chaperone or to go on a double date. Single dating was not allowed at this school. Hollywood was a sin. Movie theater attendance probably would have got us kicked out. Rock music, dancing, no way, man. Obviously, no cussing, no dirty jokes. If we missed a church service and we weren't sick, we'd get kicked out of school. You had to register your church attendance and that you did church service like Sunday school teaching or bus visitation and that you went to visitation. All this had to be registered or you'd get kicked out of school. Chapel attendance 4 days a week around 10 in the morning in a huge auditorium with aluminum chairs aligned next to each other. That was mandatory. They were aligned next to each other in rows. If you were on school property during chapel, you had to be in chapel. And this is where I saw some of the comedy skits put on by Larry the Cable Guy and his co-stars at the stage toward the front where the chapel speaker usually preached a message right after the Christian hymn sung by a male or female student. I recall how funny these skits were. Us students would all be laughing in stitches. I remember thinking, we sure can't go to Hollywood movies, but these skits are just as good as any Hollywood movie. There was no theater major, so I wondered how these amateur thespians put on such a brilliant performance. It must have been the brilliant direction of some of our professors who dabbled in theater as a hobby and had a little theater troupe at this school just for fun, an extracurricular activity that ended up as a career for Larry the Cable Guy. So I barely noticed him and he barely noticed me and we went our separate ways. After I graduated from BUA in 1983, he dropped out of BUA and started his career as Larry the Cable Guy. I never even knew he was Larry the Cable Guy until about a week ago. Now I think I know why God wanted me at Baptist University of America from 1979 to 1983. Because God knew the future Larry the Cable Guy would go there the same time that his future Nobel Prize winning writer would go there. And now we cross paths again, and that green, immature, younger classman from my Bible college, Larry the Cable Guy, is working with the love of my life, Brent Spiner, on a comedy based on this website. The future Academy Award-winning writer-producer, myself, who can't get a dime of her writing money, and the multimillionaire comedian both went to an unknown, small Baptist university no longer in existence, with an unusual pioneer spirit that lives on in both of us. Though we've both evolved away from the doctrines we learned there, this school's pioneer spirit and vision lives on in some pioneers who attended there around 1981 to 1983. That pioneer preacher from Texas, Rayburn Blair, whose church sent me $100 a month to attend this pioneer school, perhaps feels that his pioneer Texas Baptist University of America spirit lives on in Texan Brent Spiner, Larry the Cable Guy, and myself, the Nobel Prize winning missions major, who couldn't get a date with a spiritual guy who didn't have warts.